Assalamu alaikum students, this is Farwa Batul, your O-level computer science instructor, and welcome to another video. We are done with the whole topic of iterations, in which we have seen different kind of loops: count control loops, condition control loops, precondition and postcondition loops. And we have seen in all of these three languages that is mentioned in your book: Java, Visual Basic, and Python. And now we are going towards activity 8.6, that is mentioned in your book, and here you are going to use both of the type of loops, count control loops as well as the condition control loops, in whatever the language that you are working on. So in this video I will be using Python as my programming language to work out this activity. So let's quickly move to the activity in the high level language programming language that your school has chosen to use. Write and run two short programs, one using a count control loops. A count control loop is basically a for loop that we have seen, and the other a condition control loop. In Python we only have precondition loops, and that is a while loop that we use. So in this particular activity, if we are doing it in Python, we will use for as my count control loop, count controlled loop, and I will be using while as my condition control loops. If you don't know the basics of these loops, please go ahead and see the previous videos, because I already explained in detail the syntax of these. Sorry, I have written condition two times. Condition controlled loop in Python is the while loop. So let's quickly see the syntax. But what you have to do actually, they should each repeat 10 times. The loop will be repeating 10 times, incrementing the loop counter by 3. So every time when the iteration will run, it will have an incrementing value by 3. I'll show you how we can do that, and then outputting the value for each iteration. It means that whatever the value of counter is, you have to show it on your screen. Okay, so let's just quickly move towards it. The first thing is a for loop. We will see a for loop, that is a count control loop in Python, to do this activity. The first thing that is mentioned here is you have to do 10 iterations. And the second thing is the counter must increment counter, loop counter by 3. Okay, and third thing is you have to output the value of counter. Okay, so in Python, if you are writing a for loop, let's move towards the syntax. First, you will be writing the for keyword. Let's write down for. After for, you have to mention the loop counter name. Let's write down counter. Then range is your function that is being used. In range, that is the syntax for Python, and mention here three different things. First, the initial value of the counter. Let's start the counter by 1. Now, depending upon the given conditions, let's suppose if we start it from 1 and we are incrementing the value by 3. So 1 plus 3 is 4. For the next iteration, its value will be 4. Then 4 plus 3 is 7. Then 7 plus 3 is 10. Then 10 plus 3 is 13. Then 13 plus 3 is 16. Then 16 plus 3 is 19. Then 19 plus 3 becomes 22. Then 22 plus 3 becomes 25. And 25 plus 3 becomes 28. So let's quickly see that how many iterations we need. This is one iteration, this is two, this is three, this is four, this is fifth iteration, this is sixth iteration, this is seventh iteration, this is your eighth iteration, this is the ninth iteration, and this is the 10th iteration. I hope that you are getting my point. If I start the loop counter by 1 and in each iteration it is incremented by 3, so when I will reach my 10th iteration, the loop counter value must be 28. So for this, let's quickly write down. My loop counter must be less than, if it starts 1, this is the value of my loop counter here. That's the value for the loop counter. It starts from 1, it is incremented by 3 in each iteration. So the final value of the loop counter in the 10th iteration will be 28. So here in for loop, I must mention that the loop counter is less than 29. Okay, see here. If you see your syntax, this is the starting value of your loop counter. This is the value you have to put over here must be the next value of your last value of loop counter. If you want your loop counter reaches 28, so put a value just next to 28, that is 29. So let's put it 29 here because the range is like this. It starts from 1 and it must be less than 29. Whatever value you put on the second bracket, loop counter will be 1 less than that. Okay, next is the third thing is how many times you want to increment it. So I want my loop counter to be incremented by 3 in each iteration. This is what the activity is asking us to do, that you have to increment your counter by 3. So in 10 iterations, your counter must reach a value from 1 till 28 that we already saw manually here. It starts from 1, then for the second iteration it becomes 4, for third it becomes 7, for fourth iteration it becomes 10, then 13, then 16, then 19, 22, 25, 28. So this must be your expected output. Just give a print statement next to your loop. Provide indentation. All of the tasks that must be iterated or your loop statements must be intended. Now, here this print statement is going to tell us the counter values in each iteration. This is the code for your count control loop. Now let me quickly write down the output here. The output must be starting from a value 1 of your counter in the first iteration, then it is 4, then 7, then 10, then 13, then 16, then 19, then 22, then 25, and then 28. So I hope that you get it. This is going to be your expected result. Your counter will start from 1 in the first iteration and till the 10th iteration, it will reach a value 28. So in this way, you are printing your counter for each iteration. I hope that it is clear to you. I'm just going towards my Python online compiler to show you this code. Okay, so just look at this. In an online compiler for Python, I have already written my for loop, counter in range. 1 is the starting point. I will reach till less than 29 and then I have to increment the counter value by 3. Next, you have to write down your print statement inside the loop. Let's run this. Very good. So every time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10 iterations and in each iteration you can see that the counter is being incremented by 3. This is your for loop and that is a count control loop. Now we will move towards a condition control loop because we know that the value must be less than 29. So let's put a condition on the counter. Okay, so move towards a condition control loop, that is your while loop for this example. So how we can do a while loop for this activity in Python? Let's quickly move towards the syntax. For the first thing is you have to initialize the counter value. Let's start the counter by 1. And then let's start with a while loop. Remember that in the while loop you have to put a condition, and the condition must be true in order to iterate. So let's quickly write down while. While keyword is being used for precondition loops. Then inside while the condition must be you must iterate until while your counter is less than 29. So keep in mind that its value will go from 1 till 28, and every time your counter must be incremented by 3. So inside your while you must increment the counter. Counter equals counter plus 3. This statement is going to help us to increment the counter value by 3 in each iteration. And then next, you must write your print statement and display the counter value to the user. So the expected result must be the same as we saw. It starts from 1, then 4, 7, 10, 13, 16. Oh, after 10 it is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So every time the counter value will be incremented by 3. So we will reach till 28 for our 10 iterations. So let's quickly move towards your Python editor to see the results. Okay, so look at this. This is my Python online compiler. I have written the same code that I explained you, but I want to tell you one thing when I will run this program. Look here. When I run this, if you see my counter value starts from 4 in the first iteration and it goes till 31, which is not my expected output. Why it is going so? Because if you see your while loop, your counter is incremented before printing. So when it was 1, it goes inside the loop. 1 plus 3 becomes 4. Then it is printed 4. So it means that if you want to start it from 1, you must write down your print statement before incrementing the counter. So let's just write down the print statement here and mention the counter, so that when the counter value is 1 for the first time, it will be printed 1, and then after printing it will be incremented. So now let's run the program and see the results. Yeah, this is your expected result. You start from 1, the counter value is 1, and then in each iteration it is incremented by 3, and you will see the results like this. And it goes till 28. These are all your 10 iterations. For the 11th iteration, when you will check your condition, since the counter is 31, so 31 is not less than 29. The condition becomes false, and now you are not going to have your 11th iteration. So I hope you are getting this. This is how we can do activity 8.6 using Python. Thank you so much for watching this video. In the next video, we will be using Visual Basic to do the same activity. Stay tuned, stay connected. Do not forget to subscribe the channel. Bye-bye.